Due to popular demand, we're going to be talking about the ninja today, more specifically the Crescent Kick ability. So, at a high level, this ability is meant to be kind of a snappy animation that does moderate damage, high impact on a pretty low cooldown. So, the idea is you should be able to kind of use it, clean up the lower health mobs, and stun the bigger ones. But in reality, it's just a really effective tool getting killed. So I think the problems with this skill can be broken down into three distinct parts. There's damage, impact, and positioning. So let's first look at damage. So here I'm going to fight these husks, and I'm going to kill the first guy with my weapon, just for comparison, which does about 3,000 per shot, and it's a triple shot, so that's about 11,000 damage every time I pull the trigger. And this, by the way, is a backup gun, just tier 3, where I'm usually on tier 4. Compare this to about 3,000 damage from Crescent Kick. You can see that there's a pretty big difference in terms of just raw damage numbers. So we can actually compare this to a comparable skill, let's say the soldier's frag grenade ability, which in this test does about 8,000 damage. Now this isn't a perfect comparison because they have different cooldowns and grenades can have charges and the Crescent Kick can't. But we're just focusing on damage right now, and we're just trying to figure out the baseline between these skills. I think both of them actually don't do enough damage compared to weapon damage, obviously, and keeping in mind that skills are generally worse than weapons because they don't do elemental damage or energy damage, which is something you can use weapons to compensate for. But I'm actually okay with this ability not doing crazy high damage. That is, as long as it does what it's supposed to do, which is stun enemies, which brings us to the next big problem with this skill, impact. Now, this is a huge drawback to this skill, especially considering the fact that it was probably designed with stunning being the primary goal of this skill. And as you can see in mid-level Canny, you can't even stun a mini husk off one kick. It takes about 2 kicks, maybe if they're elemental 3. A regular husk takes about 3 kicks, and as a spoiler to our ongoing Husky Husk fight, they actually never get stunned. So that leaves us with the third major problem in this skill, and that is positioning. Obviously you have to be right in front of an enemy to use this skill, and it also costs energy, which you need to run away from enemies. But the fact that the ability doesn't do enough damage to kill your opponent and not enough impact to stun the opponent, you're left standing in front of the enemies for them to hit you. And if we look back at our soldier comparison with the frag grenades, well, his not only do more damage, but he gets the benefit of being able to throw it at a safe distance. Now, I know this kind of touches on the fact that melee in general in this game is in a broken state, but I just wanted to clarify that if you're going to have a skill that requires you to be right up close to an enemy, it needs to be more powerful than the average skill. So when you put all these problems together, it puts this skill on a list of other skills that are so bad that they're just not worth doing, and this one is especially bad because it's not only not worth doing, but typically it does more harm than good. And like I've mentioned in other videos, this is really just a manifestation of a larger problem in Fortnite, which is ability damage not scaling and impact not scaling and things just not working as intended once you get past Plank. So what needs to happen to fix this skill? Well, I actually think that the damage, although low, is okay for where it is. I think it could be better, or it could be changed to energy damage. But for the most part, if the ability could reliably stun the target, and I mean reliably as in anything it hits, a smasher, whatever, if it actually stuns, then I think the ability would be good enough to use. And before I wrap up, I want to acknowledge that I know there are ways to spend more resources on this skill to get more out of it. You could, play the Stonefoot Ninja who specializes specifically in this ability, or use ability damage modifiers in your support and attack bonuses. But I wanted to keep these tests as a baseline using average heroes and average fort stats. But that's it for Crescent Kick. I got a lot more messages about a lot of different abilities that you guys want to test and attack bonuses that don't work. So keep those coming. But I think the next video will probably be something on more of a positive note.